Now, not meant to embarrass you or anything, but tell the jury what kind of work you were doing back in May, June 2014.
Due to unseeable circumstances, I had to associate myself with Backpage in order to make it to where I am now.
Now, our jurors may not know what Backpage is, but...
It is an escort service.
Okay. And as an escort, did you perform sexual acts for money back then?
Yes, I did.
Okay. I'm going to turn your attention well, first let's start with Backpage. Are there different types of sites that you could use back then when you were having to do this to advertise?
I struck strictly to Backpage.
Okay.
I wasn't really aware this was my first time actually doing anything of that nature as far as going on the internet and publicly advertising something that way. That was the only site that I knew of.
Now, when you advertised on this website, did you actually did you post a phone number?
Yes, I did.
Do you remember that exactly off the top of your head?
Not the last 4 digits. I'm familiar with the 678.
Okay. If I showed you a copy of a report, would that refresh your recollection? If you
Yes.
saw the number, would it remind you if it was
Yes.
yours or not? Okay. Please, which one y'all? You talked about a 678 number. Let me let you look at this real quick. Looking at that, does that refresh your recollection about what number you
Yes.
were, and what number were you using back then?
I was using that number that was posted with my ad. That was the only phone number I had.
Okay, just for the record, is that 678-360-0318?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So tell the jury a little bit how that would work when you posted your phone number on an advertisement.
Initially, my number would go on the ad with a couple of pictures, just a couple of face shots, just to let it be known that it was me, along with a number that allowed the person, whoever needed the service, as it was put kindly, they would call me. They would come to me. I would not do out calls, which is where you go to the person to meet up in their environment. That was something I didn't engage in. It was very sketchy already given the circumstances of the business. So with my phone number, that was a way for you to contact me, to come to me, so that I could feel at least somewhat dignity or comfort doing what I was doing. So.
Now, during this time when you were doing this, let me go ahead and jump to September of 2014. Did you get a call to respond to a hotel, and you showed up and it wasn't what you thought it was going to be?
Actually, I got a call, and I told them on the call that they had come to me, and they actually did come to me.
Okay.
So.
Okay. And in September of 2014, who showed up?
Initially, it was a Hispanic gentleman. And the Hispanic gentleman told me that he had left the money in his car, and we proceeded to go to the door, and that's when I figured out what the real reason was.
Was it the police?
Yes, there was an armed officer at the door.
Okay. So obviously when this happened, were you afraid you're about to be busted?
My words were, I'm going to jail.
Okay. Were you on probation at the time?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Now, when they approached you, first of all, did they talk to you about, did they say they were going to arrest you for the prostitution? Or
No.
Okay.
They did tell me that it was pretty much a ruse just to get to me to talk to me, because apparently my number had been seen in the cell phone or whichever records that had acquired my number on it. They did ask me if anything was in the room that I shouldn't have, and I openly admitted that I did have marijuana. They never saw the marijuana, but clearly from the smell of the room, you knew I had it, so there was no reason to lie. But there was no, you're going to go to jail if you don't talk to us or anything like that. It was, this is how we got to you, now can we talk to you?
Okay. Did you agree to speak with them?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Being on probation and knowing the situation I had myself in, the best bet for me was to be cooperative.
Did they in any way, did they tell you what the focus of their investigation was, like what type of crime they were investigating or anything like that, or were they just interested in a specific person, if you knew?
They asked me if I had seen this person. They showed me just the face shot. And automatically I knew what it was, because clearly by that point it had been on the news. I really hadn't watched the news too tough. You know, I had heard fleeting rumors and hearsay gossip about what was going on, but as soon as I saw the picture and it was like, yeah, I had seen him a couple of times, that's when the broad scheme of what was going on had came to play.
So the first part, when you recognized him, was it because of your interactions with him in May personally?
Of course.
Okay. And then later you kind of realized what it was?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to show defense counsel marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 323. Showing you State's Exhibit 323, do you recognize that?
That was the picture.
Okay. And does that look similar to the picture they showed you?
Yep.
Okay. Your Honor, tender State's Exhibit 323.
Objection based on our subsequent motions in this matter.
All right. Allowed over objection. Prior ruling stands.
Thank you. Just permission to publish briefly.
You may.
Thank you. Now, when they showed you this picture, did you immediately say, did you say that you thought you recognized this guy?
I was very confident that I recognized him.
Did you give him a percentage at the time?
Oh, yes.
What
I was at least 90% sure, because
And was this, let me ask you this, was this before verifying any phone numbers or anything like that?
oh yes, most definitely.
Okay. When they showed you this photograph, did you tell them about encountering him back in May of 2014?
I knew exactly who he was once I looked into the picture and they started telling me, because he actually came to me the week of my birthday, which is in May.
And as far as this sticking out to you, let's start, what hotel did you work out of back in May?
The Econo Lodge.
Okay. And back in May of 2014, do you, why did he stick out amongst everybody else? There's something different about him than most of the people that you would see?
It's not that. It's more or less in that business, you have a memory. You can't block it out unless you just completely lose your whole self in that. And on a personal note, I do not prefer white men, so they do. I have to remember that.
Okay. So you usually were engaging in these things with African American males?
Yes.
Okay. So did he stick out because he was a white guy?
Not only that, but just given the circumstances of hearing everything and then going back to those 3 times that I saw him beforehand, there was never any nervousness. It was always like he was very relaxed. Nothing was ever going on. He really didn't talk about much. It was more or less strictly business and then go along your way.
And when you saw this picture, did you describe to the police or describe to the jury what you remember about what happened? What type of acts and things like that?
It was basically regular vanilla sex, you know, no crazy fetishes, no nothing. The first time I remember clearly was a quick visit, which is 15 minutes, just to grab bearing of who you are and who I am, to make sure I'm not a police officer, it's not a sting. The second time was actually a little bit longer, 30 minutes. The reason the way I was able to describe him was just, he didn't have any presence about himself, like he just didn't care, very dumpy, just, you know, a little bit overweight, a little bit on the hefty side, you know, he just really didn't care about his appearance. You can just tell.
Now, when you have something like this, when you have a person that comes to you for these services, are there any usual amount of times or contacts that you have with the person before they come to the room?
Mainly it's minimal contact. It's mainly just where I'm at, who you are. It's very quick sort of questioning, you know, no affiliation. At the end, it's still based upon them coming to your room or you going to them, which in my case was not an option.
Do you remember how many times he would have called you before he would have arrived?
He'd call
If
me.
you do.
If he'd text me the first time and ask me, you know, hey, are you available? And I would tell him yes or no. And then he'd call me to let me know that he was there, because at the Econo Lodge, you actually had to be, you had to stay there in order to get in. You had to have a key card. So I had to let him in because I had to walk to the end of the corridor to let him in from the outside. So I would get called at least twice. Once to ask if I was available, a second time to let me know when they were there so I could let them in.
Did you actually engage in sexual acts with him back in May?
Yes, on 3 different occasions.
Okay. Now, were you actually asked to look up, or did you volunteer to look up the phone number that they gave you for him?
I did at the time.
For
I
a
had
May
Sprint.
31st incident?
I did. I had Sprint at the time, so I was able to pull up my phone bill directly on my phone, and I highlighted every time he called my phone.
Did they give you a number, and did you look at it and verify you had gotten that?
Yes, we verified it between my phone bill and what they showed me.
Now, I know it's been a couple years since you went through this. Have you gone through some stuff in your life?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When you talked to the police back in 2014, do you think your memory would have been better then or better now today?
At
That's
that
maybe
time,
a tough question, but
At that time, honestly, I would have to say it'd be about the same because,
Okay.
you know, since that point in my life, I've done nothing but get better. I became a mother myself, finally. You know, my daughter was born 3 months early, so I've gone through a lot of different good things. So, you know, I try not to think about back then, but I keep a hold of that because it shows me what I overcame.
and with all this, with everything you've said about this, the police actually came to you with his phone number, right?
Yes.
And they saw verified on your bill that it was his
Yes.
number that contacted you, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Right.